Hello and welcome to another video. Today I am bringing you my failed attempt at reading the Goodreads Choice Awards. So yes, you heard that right. I totally failed this challenge, but I had fun and I originally wasn't going to be reading the top 20 of the Goodreads Choice Awards anyway. Wait, I should probably explain what this is. So you've probably seen a lot of people do this already, and it's quite a popular thing in the booktube community where every year when the Goodreads Choice Awards come out, someone picks a category, reads all 20 books, brings you a vlog, and tells you their thoughts. Well, I didn't do that. I did not do that. I originally only wanted to read the top 10. So I did try to work out what the top 10 would be and how I would feel about reading those books. And I just failed. I did read 11 of 10 of these books. I'm currently reading one and I do plan to finish it. But the thing is reading so many books in such a short period of time is really hard. But also, I don't get along with audiobooks that well. I'm very fussy. I find it hard to immerse myself in the story, and I can't listen to them back to back because I don't get as much enjoyment out of them as I do physically reading things. It kind of goes hand in hand because if I was able to listen to audiobooks, I probably would have completed this challenge. But because I don't read that way, this challenge just became immensely harder for me. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay that I failed this challenge. I'm okay that it didn't, work out the way that everyone else's videos worked out because at the end of the day, every reader is different. Everyone has certain amounts of time they can dedicate to things. Unfortunately, I can't just sit and read all day because I have to work, which sucks. But I did manage to complete 10 of these books. I'm currently reading an 11th, and even though I failed this challenge, I still want to come and chat to you about it and have like a little discussion on how I feel the mystery thriller category performed this year because that's the category I chose. I am a mess in this video. I did not prepare any kind of notes or any kind of way of doing this, so I do apologize if this seems a little chaotic, but it's on brand. It's on brand. So I think the best way to work this off the top of my head is to chat through the top 20 nominees and see where we lie with that. On screen right now, you should be seeing the top 20 nominations for the mystery thriller category. Now, I think I predicted half of these, so just to run through, I did predict Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murders. 0 Days was not in it, and I did actually read that. Not one of Ruth Ware's best works, so I'm not surprised to not see it on this list. Don't Let Her Stay, I did predict the same with The Maid's Diary, The Housemaid's Secret, What Lies in the Woods. None of this is true. The only one left, Bright Young Woman, The Villa, The Last Devil to Die, All the Dangerous Things, The Co-Worker. And then we get into the ones that I did not predict. So, All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby, and I have some questions for you by Rebecca Mackay. I did have them on my long list of predictions, so I knew that they could come up. But I have some questions for you, has really low average rating, which swayed me from putting it on my final predictions list. But I did think it could be in here. Same with All the Sinners Bleed. And they're not surprises. The biggest surprises for me are Homecoming, The River We Remember, Happiness Falls, and The Leftover Woman, because they are simultaneously mystery thriller while also being historical fiction. And I didn't think to add books that had been tagged as historical fiction into the mystery thriller category simply because I don't know if they belong in this category with all of the with all of the mystery thrillers we had out this year. I just didn't see the need to have historical mystery thrillers in here. And I understand there's like a fine line if you're going from like past and present, it can be historical and still modern while also fitting into a mystery thriller category. But I just feel like there was so many true mystery thrillers that having these on the list was kind of not annoying. I don't want to say it was annoying. It was just a little bit out of left field for me because I just would have assumed that Homecoming, The Leftover Woman, and I can't remember if it's Happiness Falls or The River We Remember. I assume they would be in historical fiction. So I did predict a good amount. I think 0 Days should not be on this um, list, and I don't know why it is. What have I done? I have done something. We have chaos already, people. We have chaos already. Oh, Good Bad Girl. That's the one. Okay. I could just cut out me talking about Luther, I suppose. If not, then you'll know that it was a mistake and I was looking at the wrong graphic. It's fine. We vibe. we push forward. So, out of this 20, I had already previously read some books. So, I'm just going to run through the books that I did read, starting with The Housemaid's Secret. I originally read the first one because I thought the second one was going to be in the running for this year. I also thought that this would win, essentially. I thought this had a high chance of winning. It has huge reads, like amount of reads, ratings on Goodreads, and it just kind of blew everything else out of the water for numbers. So it makes sense that this would win. I haven't heard the best things about Frida McFadden. I'm starting to see people say that she's like copying other people's work and doing it worse, but I can't comment on that because I have not read any of the books in question that is supposedly very similar. I guess that's something that I could probably look into. But for the sake of this video, I did actually enjoy this and I did give it, I originally gave it a 4 stars. Now I'm thinking that it's more 3.75, but I'm going to stick with my original rating of a 4 stars because I read this really quickly. I had fun with it. It wasn't earth-shattering, groundbreaking. Like not a lot of thrillers actually are. They're just a fun time, and I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this book. I had a good time with it. I enjoyed the first one. I'm looking forward to the third one. I can see why it was nominated, and it's very popular. So, I guess I get why this would be high on my list. Next, we have None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. Now, I was hesitant with this one because I have read Lisa Jewell in the past and it was just average. It wasn't that great. But this one was done really well. It had like this podcast slash screenplay element where you get the story not only told from the character, but you get it told from like scripts and people talking and the podcast. So it had a very gimmicky way of telling the story, but I really like that. I really like a good like podcast or screenplay or just an added element into the mystery. And the characters in this were very interesting, which kept propelling the story forward because you just didn't know like you didn't know what was lies and what was the truth in this book, and it just made you like want to find out. So you just continued reading. So I really did enjoy this. I gave this a 4.5 star. um, I think this would have had a high chance of winning because it was, Lisa Jewell's a well known author, and this was anticipated by quite a lot of people. And also, it had really good numbers, which is what I originally went off while I was making this list and trying to figure out where books fell. I had I had to pause because I heard a knock at my door. So I am probably gonna have a little bit of change in setting. It's fine. We'll get back to it. Okay. Next we have The Only One Left by Riley Sager, and this is an interesting one because this was an anticipated book for me this year. I had already planned to read it before I even thought about doing the Goodreads Choice Awards category. And I gave this 5 star when I originally read it. And now I'm thinking I want to lower that rating just because I've been reevaluating my reading for my end of year videos. And when I look at this as a 5 star, it doesn't quite feel right anymore. And even though I remember the story and I enjoyed the story, I don't think it's quite 5 star material because most of my 5 stars would potentially end up on my favorites list. But when I was making my favorites list, I don't feel like this belonged with my other books that were in that list. So I think I'm going to take this down to a 4.5 star. And I can do that. It's my reading. And like, reevaluation and, thought processes change. And even though I did have a really good time with this story, I have realized that my initial 5 star after reading does not sit well enough for me. So I'm going to take this down to a 4.5. So, interesting change of events. We then have, what else had I read before? All the Dangerous Things by Stacey Willingham. So I read All the Dangerous Things and I enjoyed this author's debut novel. So I picked this novel up and I can't remember the rating I gave it. I think it was a 4 star or a 4.25 star. And I still enjoyed this. I read this back in January when it released, so it's not as fresh in my head as a lot of these other books. But I do like how this author writes her protagonists, and I feel like, they're that thrillers that you pick up kind of knowing what you're getting yourself in for. And I enjoyed this. I didn't enjoy it as much as her first novel. I still had a good time with it. I still think it's a very worthwhile thriller, and I was glad to see that this made the nominees this year because her debut made it last year, and it's nice to see an author have some success in this category. And the final book that I had read before the nominees were announced was The Co-Worker by Frida McFadden. Again, I had went through and kind of tried to figure out what I think would be nominated, what could potentially be in this category. And when I found The Housemaid's Secret, I also found that she had other books, coming out. I read The Co-Worker. I actually really enjoyed it. I do have a couple of thriller review videos I will leave linked down below or on the screen. So if you want an in-depth look into any of these books, I will leave those linked down below so you can find those videos. I never go into spoilers, so you will be in a spoiler-free zone, so you don't have to worry about that in case you want to read any of these. But I have reviewed a few of these, and I think The Co-Worker is one of those where I got wrapped up in reading it, and it was told in a very, nice format. You had, the main character telling you the story, then you had letters to a friend, well, emails to a friend, and then you had like a swap of narrative. It was very interestingly told, and I did have a good time with it. I also had some issues. I think I originally 4 starred this, but again, looking back on my reading, looking back on the thrillers I've read, I think this is. I don't think I 4 starred this. I think I 3.75 starred this, but I'm probably going to take that down to about a 3.25. I can do what I want with my reading. The concept of these challenges and the concept of rating books is so interesting to see everyone else's thought process, but I just I just do whatever I feel like it because that's the way reading should be, in my opinion. There should be no strict rules or, you know, um, regulations to enjoy reading. And I, I kind of reevaluate my reading at the end of every year. And if I said a rating on my channel, I will then go in and correct if I've changed it. I don't often change ratings, but I did notice when I started this challenge the books that I had originally read, I wanted to change their rating because they weren't living up to the rating I had originally gave them, because I had been reading more thrillers and I started comparing them because obviously they're in these awards, this challenge, you kind of have to compare them. So it was very interesting to see how my mind changed as I continued reading. So the five books that I had originally read, I will put them in ranking order. So I obviously took The Only One Left down from 5 stars to a 4.5, which puts that and None of This Is True both at 4.5. But I personally think I enjoyed None of This Is True better than The Only One Left. So at the top of my list was None of This Is True. Then we had The Only One Left. Then I would probably say The Housemaid's Secret. Sorry, quick interlude here. I messed up and meant to say All the Dangerous Things comes before The Housemaid's Secret. This will all be on screen, so I hope you don't get mixed up because I got mixed up. Sorry. All the Dangerous Things and then The Co-worker. So those were the books that I had read before the nominees were announced, and this is the ranking that they have so far. You will see this hopefully on screen if I can get my graphics to work properly. So those are the five that I have read and ranked. We have a couple of books here that I wasn't going to read. So The Last Devil to Die by Richard Osman. Um, I wasn't going to read this. This is fourth in a book. I actually have interest in both of the CDs that are on here. So I didn't have time to read all of these 20, never mind adding more to my list. So that got knocked off my list right away. Then we have the Cannon Slaughter After That Night. This is book 11 in the Will Trent series. Again, I wasn't going to start on book 11. I have interest in this author and the series. So straight away, the 20 books that I was going to read turned into 18 books because there was two that I couldn't read the backlog of and actually have interest in. So I don't want to just jump in for the sake of this challenge. Then we have a few that I had. Well, we have one that I have absolutely no interest in, and that is The River We Remember. This is not a book that I would like to spend my time reading. It does not appeal to me. It is not something that I would go out my way to read. And with the amount of books that I have on my shelves and on my Kindle and stuff, it's just not worth forcing myself to pick up a book that I really don't want to read. So my 18 then turned into 17. So we had 17 books to work with. I knew that I wasn't going to get, I already knew I was going to fail this challenge because I was only working with 17 books. I knew I wasn't going to get to all 17. But I had originally read 5, which brought it down to 12. So I had 12 to kind of suss my way through to see what I would think would be top 10. So I started with Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers, and I really enjoyed this. I gave this 4 stars. This was funny and witty while also still being, touching and heartwarming. And I just really enjoyed Vera Wong as a character and the way that she just took charge. And if I get old, I want to be like her. I just want to be determined. Is that even not even determined? Unfortunately Vera Wong in this story is quite lonely, so I don't think I would like the loneliness aspect. But that changes throughout the narrative of this story, which is kind of like found family, found friends, and with a little bit of a murder mystery going on at the center. It feels like kind of low stakes, even though it's not. But the writing makes you feel like it is. I really enjoyed this. I gave this 4 stars, and I think this would go right in between The Housemaid's Secret and All the Dangerous Things. I think this has the number 4th spot on my list, and I really enjoyed it. Then we have Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. Knoll. I apologize. Names, they're really hard. So I already had interest in this book, and it was a book that I had already planned to pick up. And when I seen that it was in the nominations, I was like, okay, this is one that I'm gonna read, even if it doesn't make it. I picked this up, absolutely loved it, gave it 5 stars, and this knocked None of This Is True off the top of my list. This became number one for me. This is a story of, it's kind of like inspired by true events story of a killer who goes into a college sorority house and kills someone, and you know, you follow. I'm trying not to give too much away. You follow the woman that seen him, and she lost her best friend during this. Her best friend was murdered, and you follow her trying to fight to find who this is and get him convicted. And then you also follow like side characters. Well, they actually become main characters because there's like a certain trail of evidence that leads through different towns, different places, different people, because supposedly it's a transient murderer. Now, Bright Young Woman is a play on Ted Bundy, I'm more than positive, because when he was convicted, there was that whole thing of the judge saying that he was a bright young man and he ruined his life essentially. The thing I absolutely adored about this story was it was all about the people that deserved to be named. It was about the people that struggled with the after effects of a very evil person. The killer was never named. It's something that is like it's hard to read. It's a very hard to read mystery thriller because it has that social commentary and it has those characters that you start like rooting for and wanting everything to, you know, work out for. This quickly became the 5 star thriller that was at the top of my list, and I'm not mad about it. So yeah, this took the first spot. So we then have I have some questions for you. I DNF this. DNF's a valid rating in my opinion. If I'm DNFing something, this was a hard DNF, so I will not return to it. If I soft DNF something, it's different. I may return in the future, but this was a hard DNF because I just didn't like it. As soon as I went in, the author had assumed knowledge the reader didn't really possess, so it was like you were kind of playing catch up with the story, and it just didn't hook me. I think I got about 20% in and was like, no, don't want this. And that's okay because not everything's going to work for everyone, and I don't feel like forcing myself through a book just for a challenge. My reading is fun. Everything's meant to be, enjoyable. It's a hobby. So I didn't see the point in forcing myself to pick this book up. Then we have What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall. I gave this 3.75? A 4? I can't even remember now. Maybe it was a 4. Hmm. I'm going to go with 4 because that feels more right. And I'm going to put this hmm, after Vera Wong because this story has a very certain specific aspect to it that if you consume the content that I consume, this story becomes predictable. It probably is predictable anyway, but like as soon as I started reading this story, I knew what the outcome was going to be essentially because it is like it was very similar to a true crime case that I had watched. And so like as soon as I got that in my head, I was like I couldn't get out my head, and it did end up following the very similar beats to the true crime episode that I watched of a show somewhere. I can't remember what it was, but I did enjoy the voice of the main character in this, and I enjoyed how we got to the ending, and toxic friendships and weird family dynamics and small town settings was all really well written in this book, and I did really enjoy it, even though I found it predictable. So this is going to go just under Vera Wong. Then we have a soft DNF, which is Homecoming by Kate Morton. I think this belongs more in historical because I read this and we spend quite a lot of time in the past timeline. but we do also spend time in the present timeline. But I just feel like this fits more for historical for me. I got 30% of the way through this, and we had gotten to no real, no real thrillery plot. We had a mystery, but it wasn't like, it didn't feel hooking when I was reading it. So I think this is potentially a story that I would enjoy if I gave myself the time to read it physically, but which is why it's a soft DNF, because I'm not saying that I would never return to this, because what I did listen to was okay. It just wasn't for me at that precise moment. And I also got a little bit, annoyed that this was in the mystery thriller category when I felt like it didn't fit there. I may be wrong because I didn't finish this book, and that's okay. But I just didn't feel like this book fit in with what I was reading, which is maybe why I found it a little bit harder to mesh with the story. But I soft DNF'd it, so I will never say never. Next, we have Don't Let Her Stay by Nicola Saunders. I actually quite enjoyed this. I gave this a 3.5. This was better than the co-worker, so this goes above the co-worker. Does it go above the housemaid? No, because the housemaid's 4. Mm, yeah, I'll put it above the co-worker. This was a fun, fast-paced, entertaining thriller. It was like one of those, cheesy Hallmark mystery thrillers that you watch and forget. It's like 90 minutes, and it's a good old time, but it's not something that you're going to really remember. And I did enjoy some of the twists in this, but I did see the big twist as very predictable, which, you know, the author done a good job at trying to sway me into believing what I thought was going to happen wouldn't happen. But I'm a stubborn bitch, and when I get a thought into my head that I know what's happening, I'm like a dog with a bone. That's it. I'm done. I feel like I know what's going to happen. So I just keep reading to find out if I'm right or not. And it turned out in this one I was right. And I could see that if you were if you weren't as stubborn as I was, that this could have worked, but it didn't work for me personally. Um but I did have fun with it. I read this in like a day. I just sat, lay in my bed with my Kindle, didn't talk to anyone, didn't really interact, and just vibed in with this story, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a a great, fun time. Not groundbreaking, but if you're looking for a thriller that's gonna have you turning the pages and enjoying yourself, that you can pick up, forget, and have a ball, this is one of them. So I would say that is like above the co-worker for me. The last book that I read was The Maid's Diary, which by Lorith Ann White, which I think I gave a 3.75, maybe a 4. The thing is I think I gave it a 3.75, but now with The Housemaid's Secret, I'm starting to think they're probably on par with each other. I don't know what one I would put above the other. I'm going to stick with The Housemaid's Secret being above it, just because that's a 4 star and this is a 3.75. I really enjoyed this. This was again like Don't Let Her Stay, fun, fast paced, entertaining, but it also had like an underlying, bit more commentary going on about friendships and do you really know the people that you're around. Also, it had that kind of social commentary because you're following a maid that goes into the house of well-to-do people and is invisible. So there is a little bit of social commentary in this one, not much, but some. And the ending, I didn't quite predict. And also, I've got to give props to the author because the synopsis was, I thought I knew what was going to go on with the synopsis, but the synopsis doesn't really cover what actually happens in this book, which I do appreciate because it made this book more surprising. And even the end surprised me. I did not predict this ending, which was nice because sometimes with these fun, fast paced, kind of showy thrillers, entertaining thrillers, it could be quite predictable. I did not predict this one, and I also did not know a lot about the story from the synopsis, but I didn't feel like it was disconnected, so it worked. It worked very well together. So, those are the books. I am going to put that one under the Housemaid's Secret for right now. So, I'm currently reading All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. I am actually enjoying this book. I do intend to finish this. And I don't I'm kind of annoyed I didn't finish it before filming, but I kind of need to get this off my dock so that I can just be like, yeah, okay, I failed. I can move on to other things and get this off my head. But I am enjoying this. I don't know where this would fall in my overall rankings, but it is good, and I do plan to continue it. Now that leaves some that I didn't get to. So I have The Villa, which I did predict would be on this list, and I had very little interest in reading. So I kind of left that one to the side because I was like, I don't really want to read it in the first place. So that was fine. You know, it didn't make top 10 anyway, so it's not a big deal. Happiness Falls and The Leftover Women were two that I was not sure about. I wasn't sure if these were going to be my kind of mystery thrillers or, how I would feel about them. I do have some interest in Happiness Falls because I've seen some people review it and have heard good things. I haven't heard anything of The Leftover Woman, Woman. Um, yeah, I'm not mad that I didn't get to these. I don't think any of these had the top 10 to be fair. I'm going to have to go check anyway. Um, so I'm not mad that I didn't get to these. Probably wouldn't really read them if it wasn't for a challenge. So the fact that I'm not forcing myself to do stuff that I don't want to do, I'm like I still feel like this is a good concept coming to you and being like I failed, hi, because like sometimes that happens, and I still had fun reading the books that I did read. One book that I do plan to read that I didn't get round to was Good Bad Girl by Alice Feeney. I actually own this and I do plan to read this. So I will be finishing All the Sinners Bleed and reading Good Bad Girl. I just didn't have time before this video. So there is only so much we can do. So let's go on to Goodreads and have a little look and see what we are working with. So, unsurprisingly, with 86,468 votes, the Housemaid's Secret won. Now, I kind of predicted this. I knew that it was going to be top 10. I knew it was going to win. It was either between this and None of This Is True, which was second with 73,000 votes. Not a huge difference, but still a huge difference. Um, what would I say? I would say None of This Is True is the better book, and I think that deserved to win more than The Housemaid's Secret, but it's still not what I voted for. The only one left was third, and again, Richard Osmond. Yes, The Last Devil to Die was number 4. I wasn't going to read this because I do have interest in this series, but it does not surprise me to see this in the top 10 at all. So that's the first book that I haven't read out of the reveal so far. We have Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers, which I'm so happy to see on this because I do think this deserves a place here. And it feels right. It feels right. And then we have Bright Young Woman, which, as you could probably tell from my rankings, I voted for this. I think this was one of the more highbrow thrillers on this list. I think it was very well written, sad, but also entertaining, and you know, a different way to tell a story of a serial killer that's probably been done loads and loads and loads of times. It was just done very well here. This is what I voted for. It didn't win, but I am happy that it made top 10. Then we have All the Dangerous Things, which again, I'm happy to see this on here. I read this in January, had interest in it anyway, so it was nice to see her debut go on last year and her second book go on this year. Then we have Homecoming, which is one I soft DNF'd. So this is the second book that I didn't read on the top 10, um, which is totally fine. Let's see what we're on. Which is totally fine. I'm okay with whatever I done. I'm happy. And similarly, this the second book, the ninth book, is I Have Some Questions for You. How this got the ninth spot, I do not know, because it has really like it has a 3.64 on Goodreads, um, with like almost like 79,000 ratings. I just I haven't heard the best things. I didn't enjoy what I read of it. I I don't know. I feel like there was maybe other thrillers that could have took the space of some of the books that ended up on here. The next book and the number 10 book was All Sinners Bleed. I'm currently reading this, so I'm not going to count that as one that I haven't read. So out of the top 10, I didn't read one because I have interest in it. I soft DNF'd one. I hard DNF'd one, and I am currently reading one. I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it. What I am like, I'm quite interested that The River We Remember ended up in the 11th spot, because What Lies in the Woods had great ratings and great like numbers. So I'm quite surprised that didn't end up top 10. I would say out of all the ones that are left, What Lies in the Woods, I think should have took the place of I Have Some Questions for You. But again, I hardly enough. I have some questions for you, so I could be, speaking out in left field. But for me personally, I think What Lies in the Woods should have been in the number ninth spot. But it is what it is, and it's fun. It's fun. Um, Goodreads is very much a popularity contest. It has no bearing on anything at all apart from it's fun, and I had a really good time trying to read as much thrillers as I could, and I'm still reading one. I found some really good books that I will be recommending, um, as I go forward. And yeah, it was fun to give it a try. And even though I failed, I'm still very happy with the turnout of this video, of the books that I read. And I kind of feel pretty proud because I think I kind of predicted the winner, because The Housemaid's Secret and None of This Is True was kind of at the top of my list. Very surprised if anything bet The Housemaid's Secret. But if you're wondering what I voted for, I read 10 books. I soft DNF one, I hard DNF'd another. I couldn't read two because they were part of series that I have interest in. I had three books. I had one book that I had zero interest in reading. I had two books that I wasn't sure I wanted to read. Oh, actually, two books I had zero interest in reading, because The Villa as well. And then two books I didn't really want to read. But I still had fun. I still had fun, and I still enjoyed myself. So I think that's the main thing. And I hope you enjoyed me just chatting through my failure and also the books that I read. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to stay safe, happy, and healthy, and I will see you next time. Bye.